There are things that happen in national parks that never make the news. Not because they are not serious, not because the people involved do not report them, but because the agencies responsible for managing those parks have a very specific interest in maintaining the perception that America's wilderness is safe, accessible, and welcoming to the millions of visitors who generate the revenue that keeps those parks operating. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am not someone who believes that the government is hiding extraterrestrials in national park forests or that there are secret tunnels beneath Yellowstone. I am a former high school science teacher from Knoxville, Tennessee, who spent a long weekend with her husband in Great Smoky Mountains National Park in the fall 3 years ago. And I am telling you this story because of what a park ranger named Ellis told me, and more importantly, because of what he would not tell me on a trail called Alum Cave Trail at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon on the second day of our trip. What he told me changed how I understand wilderness. What he would not tell me has never stopped bothering me. This is what happened. My husband David and I had been planning this trip for almost a year. We are not inexperienced hikers. We live in Knoxville. The Smokies are practically in our backyard. We have hiked sections of the Appalachian Trail, done overnight trips in the park, know the trails reasonably well. This was not our first time in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. We had been there probably 15 times over our 12 years of marriage. We arrived on a Thursday afternoon in late October, peak foliage season. The park was busy, but we had planned for that. Our campsite was at Elkmont, one of the most established campgrounds in the park. We had reservations. Everything was organized. Friday was a perfect day. We did a long loop on the Porter's Creek Trail, saw 3 black bears at a distance, which is always exhilarating, ate lunch on a log overlooking a stream, were back at camp before dark. That night we cooked over the camp stove and watched the stars, and I remember thinking, this is exactly what I needed. Saturday was the day things changed. We had planned to hike Alum Cave Trail. If you know the Smokies, you know this trail. It is one of the most popular in the park, a 5.5-mile round trip to Alum Cave Bluffs, well marked and well traveled. Not a difficult hike by any measure. We had done it before. We started at the trailhead at 9 a.m. The parking lot was full. Peak season Saturday, exactly what we expected. Plenty of other hikers on the trail. Everything completely normal for the first 2 hours. It was on the way back down at approximately 2:30 in the afternoon that we found the items. We were descending from the bluffs, maybe 1.5 miles from the trailhead. The trail there runs through a section of dense rhododendron thicket, the kind that grows so thick on either side that you cannot see more than a few feet into it. The trail itself is narrow, maybe 4 feet wide. You were walking single file through a green tunnel. David was ahead of me by maybe 10 feet. He stopped. I came up beside him and looked at what he was looking at. On the left side of the trail, set back maybe 2 feet into the rhododendron, so you would not notice it if you were not looking, there was a pile of items. I want to describe them carefully because the details matter. A boot, 1 boot, lace-up hiking boot, men's size, maybe a 10 or 11. The boot was upright, not fallen on its side, upright, as if placed there. Inside the boot, visible because the boot was unlaced and open, was a rolled-up sock. Beside the boot, a water bottle, metal, insulated, the kind that costs $30 or $40. The lid was off. The bottle was on its side, but had not rolled far. The The ground in the rhododendron was root-heavy, lots of natural cradles. It was empty, or nearly empty. I could not tell without picking it up, and I did not pick it up. And beside the water bottle, a phone, face down, an iPhone in a green case, face down in the dirt. David said, "Someone lost their stuff." I said, "How do you lose one boot?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "And why is the phone face down?" We looked at those items for a long time. There was no one in the rhododendron thicket, no sound of anyone nearby. The other hikers we had passed coming down were behind us somewhere, but we could not hear them yet. I took photographs with my phone, all 3 items in situ without touching them. And then we kept walking down the trail toward the trailhead. We encountered Ranger Ellis about a quarter mile from the trailhead. He was coming up the trail, not hiking, moving with purpose, the kind of walk that says, "I am going somewhere specific." He was in his late 40s, experienced looking, the kind of ranger who has been doing this job long enough that nothing surprises him. We stopped him. I told him what we had found: 1 boot, upright with a sock inside, an open, empty water bottle, a face-down phone, in the rhododendron about 1.5 miles up. He listened to me without interrupting. When I finished, he did not ask me to describe the items again. He did not ask for my photographs. He did not look at my phone. He asked me one question. He said, "Approximately how far off the trail were the items?" I said 2 feet, maybe 3, set back into the rhododendron, but visible from the trail. He nodded. Then he said, "Thank you for reporting it. We'll check it out." And he kept walking up the trail. Something about the exchange felt wrong to me immediately. I turned and watched him go. He had not written anything down. He had not radioed anyone. He had not asked my name or my contact information. He had not looked at my photographs. I called after him. "Should we file a report somewhere? Is there someone we should talk to at the visitor center?" He turned and looked at me over his shoulder. He said, "That won't be necessary. Enjoy the rest of your trip." And he continued up the trail. David took my arm and we walked back to the trailhead. We got in the car. I said to David, "He already knew." David said, "What?" I said, "He already knew those items. He didn't ask me anything because he didn't need to. He already knew they were there." We went to the Sugarlands Visitors Center that afternoon anyway. I am a person who files reports. It is just who I am. If I find something that seems wrong, I document it and I report it to whoever is responsible. The ranger at the Visitors Center, a young woman, probably early 20s, clearly new to the job, listened politely and took notes. She asked for my photographs, which I sent to her work email while we stood there. She said they would look into it. She said people lose items on trails all the time. She said they had a lost and found at the Visitors Center, and if anyone came looking for a phone or a boot, they would have my report on file. I said, "We encountered Ranger Ellis on the trail. He was heading up toward the location when we spoke to him." Her expression changed. It was subtle, the kind of change you might miss if you were not watching for it. A slight tightening, a brief recalibration. She said, "Okay, thank you. We'll coordinate with him." I said, "Has anything happened on Alum Cave Trail recently? Any incidents?" She said, "I'm not aware of anything, but I can check with my supervisor if you'd like." She went to the back. She was gone for 4 minutes. When she came back, she said her supervisor had confirmed that there were no current incidents on Alum Cave Trail and that the items we reported had been noted and would be retrieved. She smiled and thanked us for reporting it. We left the visitors center. That night at camp, I looked up Alum Cave Trail on my phone, recent reviews on hiking apps, trip reports from the past month. On a hiking forum posted 11 days ago by a user named Highland Hiker 92. Weird vibe on Alum Cave today. Trail was closed for about 2 hours midday. Rangers said maintenance, but there were no maintenance vehicles and they looked stressed. When they reopened it, a ranger walked with our group to the bluffs without explaining why. Anyone know what happened? 14 responses. No one knew. The thread had gone cold. We drove home Sunday morning. I want to tell you about the drive home because it is where the story becomes something I cannot fully resolve. I had been thinking about it for 24 hours. The boot, the phone face down, the way Ranger Ellis had not asked me a single identifying question. The young ranger's expression had shifted when I mentioned his name. The forum post about the trail closure. I pulled up the National Park Service Missing Persons database on my phone while David drove. Great Smoky Mountains National Park, last 12 months. There were 7 open missing persons cases. 7 people who entered the park and not come out. I want to be careful here because I am not making a claim. I am not saying those 7 people are connected to what we found on Alum Cave Trail. I am not saying that a boot and a phone and a water bottle represent something sinister rather than something innocent. A hiker who lost items, a discarded pile of gear from someone who turned back, 100 other explanations. I am saying that 7 people were missing from one national park in 1 year, and that when I found items that could belong to them, a park ranger did not ask me for my photographs or my contact information. I am saying that a trail was closed for 2 hours, 11 days before we hiked it, and the rangers present looked stressed and gave no explanation. I am saying that when I asked the visitor center ranger if anything had happened on that trail, she went to the back and spoke to someone for 4 minutes before returning with a carefully worded non-answer. I am not making a claim. I am saying something felt wrong, and I have learned at this point in my life to take that seriously. I made 3 phone calls in the weeks after we got home. The first was to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park Public Affairs Office. I asked if there had been any incidents on Alum Cave Trail in October. I was told that incidents on specific trails were not disclosed as a matter of policy unless they involved a public safety concern requiring trail closure. I asked if Alum Cave Trail had been closed in October. After a pause, I was told that trails are sometimes closed for maintenance or safety assessments, and that this information was not routinely made public. I asked about the 7 open missing persons cases I had found in the database. I was told that missing persons cases in national parks were handled in coordination with local law enforcement, and that I could contact the Sevier County Sheriff's Office for information on specific cases. The second call was to the Sevier County Sheriff's Office. A very polite dispatcher took my name and told me that missing persons information for cases within the national park was coordinated with the NPS and that she would have someone return my call. No one returned my call. The third call was to a journalist I had seen write a piece about missing persons in national parks for an outdoors publication. She answered. She listened to everything I told her. She said, "You're not the first person to call me from the Smokies." I asked her what she meant. She said, "I've had 4 calls in the past 2 years from people who found things on trails in Great Smoky Mountains. items that suggested someone had been there recently and then wasn't. In each case, the Park Service response was similar to what you're describing, acknowledgement without information. I asked if she was going to write about it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have been trying to for 8 months. I can't get anyone on the record. Not the rangers, not the sheriff's office, not anyone who works for the Park Service. Everyone I talk to confirms that things happen in that park that are not in the reports, and no one will say it on the record. Things happen in that park that are not in the reports." I have thought about that sentence every single time I have considered going back to the Smokies.
I want to be honest with you about what I know and what I do not know. I do not know what happened on Alum Cave Trail. I do not know who left a boot and a phone and a water bottle 2 feet off the trail in a rhododendron thicket. I do not know if it is connected to any of the 7 open missing persons cases I found in the database. I do not know what Ranger Ellis knew or did not know when he walked past us without asking for my photographs, and the other went to consult with a supervisor before telling me there was nothing to know. I am not asking you to believe that anything sinister is happening in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I am not asking you to believe that the Park Service is hiding anything. I am asking you to be the kind of person who pays attention, who takes photographs, who reports what they find and to whom they reported it and what the response was, who knows that 12 million people visit a place every year and some of them do not come home, and the system responsible for those people sometimes answers questions in ways that are not quite answers. Before you go into any wilderness, any national park, any forest, any trail that takes you away from roads and people and cell service, tell someone where you are going, specific trailhead, planned route, expected return time, who to call if you are not back by when. And if you find something on a trail that does not belong there, take photographs, report it, and pay attention to how the people you report it to respond. Because sometimes the way someone answers a question tells you more than the answer itself. Ranger Ellis walked up that trail without writing anything down. He already knew, and whatever he knew, he decided I did not need to know it too.